and welcome to hashtag One With You, the PLDT Enterprise Virtual Industry Forum for the Visayas region. This is Kent de la Calzada of PLDT Enterprise, and it is my honor to be your host this afternoon. To all those who are tuned in, we truly appreciate you taking the time to be with us in this session. This afternoon, amidst this pandemic, we will get to hear relevant data from our keynote speakers from Global Data and PLDT Enterprise. We are also fortunate to have with us today a roster of distinguished panelists representing the Visayas region. Mr. Felix Tagyam of Cebu Chamber of Commerce, Robert Go of Prince Retail Group, and Bunny Pajes of Pajes Holdings to discuss key learnings and experiences, as well as share best practices on how their companies has managed to mitigate the negative impact of this crisis. And most importantly, this session aims to highlight the role of technology as we enter the future of work, as well as how we navigate it through our daily lives. If you have any questions and suggestions, feel free to key them in through the chat box. Before we begin, here's a quick rundown of our reminders. For uninterrupted viewing experience, make sure you have a stable internet connection. Feel free to use any device to view the virtual event. For better appreciation, turn up the volume or use your headphones. To officially start the program, our first presenter is a highly respected financial analyst based in Sydney, Australia, whose focus study areas include retail banking and wealth management market in the Asia-Pacific region. The team he leads focuses on identifying desirable consumer segments, growth niches, the mass affluent, and trends affecting the retail banking space in Asia-Pacific. He is highly involved in large-scale benchmarking projects, and some of his recent topics of research included close look at wealth management markets in Malaysia, Indonesia, and Singapore. Here to share with us the latest on the impact of coronavirus on the global economic landscape with focus on Asia-Pacific region to help local industries thrive amidst the crisis, please let us all welcome on screen Global Data's Head of Content for Asia-Pacific, Andrew Haslip. Andrew, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and greetings from Sydney. Gloomy old Sydney, unfortunately, today. Thanks for the intro. And I'll be talking about the global impact of the pandemic, and in particular, focusing on some of the trends in the retail sector. So, when we look at it, obviously there's a lot of red ink being spilt. In particular, in the last week, we've actually seen a lot of reporting from the Q1 statistics from banks and major corporations around the world, which is all leading us to revise down. So these figures here are global data's estimates on GDP growth and active jobs in these markets. And as you can see, most of them, unfortunately, are negative, with only China still eking out growth in 2020, and that obviously much reduced from what it was. So only China amongst leading economies expected to grow now in 2020, and it's a pretty scary thought, something that we obviously didn't even have in the global financial crisis. Now, looking at some of the actual financial markets around the world, here's just a few of the leading indices from around the world: the Nasdaq, DAX, FTSE, and all that. What we're seeing there was that there was a huge dislocation, obviously in March. Big drops in terms of the indices, and a bit of a recovery since then. Actually, a little bit of a bounce this week in particular, as there's been some good news around possible treatments from Gilead out there. One of the other indicators I just want to highlight in particular there that we're tracking in particular is crude oil. Why crude oil? Just because it's a good indicator of the amount of activity in the global economy. Obviously, we are getting slightly less dependent on oil for economic activity, but generally speaking, expectations that we will need more or less of it means more or less economic activity. We did see a very worrying sign of a collapse in the oil price not too long ago, with West Texas Intermediate in particular, showing how weak the U.S. economy was and their demand for oil. That's recovered, which is great. It's eased down a bit now, and recovered a bit. It's a bit of a roller coaster, but it does suggest a little bit of pessimism overall for the year, which is hardly surprising. So now looking at, I guess, essentially jobs. One of the interesting things I think about this particular crisis, compared to past crises and past recessions, has been the immediate impact on unemployment in all the affected countries. So here's just the listing that we track for active jobs in the and the change in the number of active jobs in the last 30 days as well as the last 7 days. So just some key takeaways here. Obviously, there's mounting unemployment all around the world. Generally speaking, in the markets that we're tracking, there's been a 23% decline in the number of active jobs over the last 30 days, which puts the number of job losses already far in excess of what we saw during the global financial crisis. Even in the worst affected countries like the UK and the US during the financial crisis, it didn't get this bad. And it didn't get this bad this quick. That's another important thing. There were a lot of, obviously, job losses. Every recession has a lot of job losses, but they were actually stacked over almost a 12-month period. What we're seeing right now is a very rapid uptick in terms of unemployment, and that's really quite worrying long-term for a lot of business models. So mounting unemployment more than anything is what concerns the banking sector, concerns the retail sector. I mean, almost every single sector you can think of, it's having a direct implication for the client bases there. Now, moving on to the general kind of forecasts, consensus obviously expects a global recession, and I just want to highlight that's pretty significant itself. The recession that we're expecting right now for the globe is actually 2.3% down, and that's a much bigger drop than what we saw in terms of the GFC, and any moves since then. A lot of the negative numbers right now are concentrated in the leading economies of the world. So you're looking at the big economies of Europe, devastated obviously by this. China, formerly a massive reliable growth engine, stuttering as well, and then obviously a huge contraction in the U.S., 5% down. We're expecting. And the Q1 figures, I think came out just yesterday for the U.S., and I just want to interject those there. A 4.7% contraction quarter on quarter for Q1, and expectations that Q2 will build on that. So obviously, we are expecting a little bit of a upturn in the later quarters of the year, to claw back some of that losses, but it will be slow going. So we just need to remember that the global financial crisis resulted in a contraction of just over 0.1% for the global economy, and in a good scenario, what we're predicting right now is roughly a 3% contraction for the globe. So just to put that in perspective, it's a big difference. It's significant. So just a bit of a summary here. A lot of volatility still in the market. A lot of downside still possible. But a lot of support coming into the market from the regulators and from governments itself. So one of the key things about the economic impact this time around is that it's so widespread. There's no hidden sources of growth around the world, the way there was in the GFC. There was a saying, Shanghai, Mumbai, Dubai, or goodbye, and that's because you could rely upon those markets to give you some boost, even when the US and the UK were stuttering so badly. That's not the case now. They're all in various stages of crisis and recession now. So if we look a little bit more at the retail sector specifically, we can see that the impact of COVID on the retail sector has really shifted west over the course of this crisis. So starting obviously in China, number 2 market around the world for GDP overall, and obviously a huge one for the retail sector, to Europe, where it's devastated, the number 2, and then finally to the US as well. And I think out of this, that's obviously bad enough for the retail sector. The three big top markets of the world getting devastated, but there's also a potential for another follow-on where we're very closely monitoring. I highlighted there India, just that in terms of monetary value, maybe not the largest market around the world, but one that could really come back and bite us if things go badly. So that's one we're watching for in terms of the global retail trends. So obviously, it started in China. So let's look at how China's coming out of this and see what China can tell us in terms of the impact it's going to have. So the impact of COVID on the retail sector in China. It did boost a couple of sectors. Food, beverages, and over-the-counter medicines did see growth in the first 2 months of the year compared to last year, but almost across the board for everything else, a depressionary kind of experience. We need to note that this is before the actual recession hit China. So this is crisis impact, and what we can basically anticipate is going to be happening in our economies now while they're in full or partial shutdown. With the economy only partially shut down in most of the country, this might be a good model for what's happening in the Philippines, for instance. So moving on. One should just look at a little bit of the growth in terms of online versus offline sales as well. It's important to note that there is a bright spot to the economy there. E-commerce is definitely up, but just to note, it does not make up for the bricks and mortar contraction that we're seeing around the world. So really, access to cash or cash reserves will be one of the key determinants of who actually can make it out of this crisis in the coming months. There's a lot of cheap money in the system. Governments are pushing a lot of money into this with good reason, but it's hard to make sure that the smaller brands receive access to this. I mean, this is a problem that we've seen in the U.S. With their small business loans going to the giants of business rather than necessarily the small players in the retail market, for instance. So most small players will have to take it on themselves to ensure that they're getting access. Just quickly through some of the brands that are benefiting from this. What we're seeing in the U.S., for instance, it's the major retailers of essentials. So your Walmart being up quite significantly, but even also online players like Amazon. So I think one of the big challenges here is for small and large retailers in general is rapidly upping the capacity to deal with digital and e-commerce sales, and that's really one of the key challenges. Obviously, of the restaurant sector in particular, which maybe had not been as keyed into deliveries, for instance, or takeaway, and that'll be a big challenge over the next quarter. So total retail growth year on year, I think it goes without saying it's pretty negative. We're still predicting some growth in terms of China because they've come through this more rapidly. This anticipates, of course, that there's no widespread second wave in China. If there is, that's all bets are off, unfortunately. And I think here we all need to think about how and what we are buying, and whether those will be the same pattern in the recession and recovery period as the crisis. So what has been boosted now or cut now could really be coming back in a quick way. And finally, just kind of looking at a sub-sector impact. Obviously, food and grocery boosted by the crisis. Clothing and footwear retailing, generally speaking, has been hit hardest. There's not a lot of shopping for business attire, for instance, when you don't go into the office. Electricals are up, but that was a very short-term kind of boost as people kind of stocked up for their hibernation period. Health and beauty also normally considered to be more of a stable sector, down as well, and then finally down in terms of the general on-site kind of stuff. So as the world shifts away from towards the recession, away from the lockdowns, we need to think of the items really that remain depressed and how to continue through to the eventual recovery. And that's what it really is. It's a lot of it is endurance. So public is stressing again, cash reserves, access to cash, credit lines, and all that is very, very crucial during this period because there's not a lot of capacity to absorb these, particularly in the retail sector. And because of the recession, there'll be no snapback, unfortunately, in terms of non-essential spending, and that's a strategic threat to a lot of retailers and restaurateurs out there. Here's just a few of the summary of the impact. Generally speaking, it's going to be devastating. It is particularly exposed, the retail sector. After travel and tourism and healthcare, really the retail sector has borne the brunt of this crisis. So our revenue projections are generally quite dire. There's a lot of unemployment expected in the sector itself, as unfortunately some of the weaker brands and the less cashed up brands, not necessarily weaker, but less cashed up, do unfortunately go to the wall. Huge disruption to supply chain and demand, but really some good things out there in terms of what some of the bigger brands are doing to try to accommodate and be a force for good in the market as well. So really assisting the fight against the virus is noticed by consumers, and it will be something that benefits in the recession and recovery later. So this is our view of what the major issues facing global retailers are. And as you can see, COVID's a main one right now. But I do want to highlight that there are some longer term ones that we think are going to be a bigger issue down the road. In particular, sustainability has been a growing issue for consumers, and it's a big and growing threat to some retailers. So addressing that long term is a great strategy to path your way out of the crisis. So that's in a nutshell. It was a lot of content there, but that's in a nutshell what I have for you guys, and hope you enjoyed it. I think we're muted there.
Thank you very much, Andrew, for such a comprehensive report. My key takeaway from your presentation that amidst all the negativity being reported, there's still a glimmer of hope, since China, being the first one to get hit, is on its way to recovery. Something our viewers here in the Philippines also hope to achieve sooner rather than later. What also struck me in your presentation that it's retailers, other than COVID, is looking at technology as well as being sustainable. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you.
From the global setting, we now go local. Our next speaker has been with PLDT for over 25 years. He is currently the head of enterprise business for the Visayas, and his group manages more than 4,000 clients, mostly coming from the retail industry, offshoring and outsourcing, banking and finance, manufacturing, education, and travel and tourism. To share with us some high insights on the positive and negative impact on the COVID-19 on various industries in the Philippines and the future of work happening now, please welcome Corporate Relationship Management Head of PLDT Visayas, Mr. Jimmy Chua. Jimmy, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Kent. Distinguished guests, our dear enterprise clients viewing us online, friends, ladies, and gentlemen, a warm and pleasant afternoon to all of you. There has been a lot of frightening news going around from the global stage to the national level and even here locally. I hope each one of you is safe and well. Just a quick summary of the COVID situation for the Visayas region. As of September 28, total cases for the Visayas reached 675. I learned that yesterday a handful of positive cases were added to this number. Based on the latest IATF advisory, Cebu City and its province will continue to be on ECQ until May 15. Other low-risk provinces will be downgraded to GCQ starting May 1. And as of yesterday, Iloilo City, Capiz, and Aklan were added to the list. Today, I want to talk about the one concern that we have in common: the business impact of COVID 19 in the local setting. Business impact can go either way, positive or negative, but the adversarial impact of this pandemic at present time definitely weighs heavier than the positive. So let me start by stating the obvious: how this pandemic affected the major industries of the Visayas region. For the retail industry, this industry has seen to be most affected due to the ECQ, especially those inside the malls. For travel and tourism, another one of the hardest hit, especially the resorts in Mactan, Bohol, and Boracay, pretty obvious since there are no more foreign as well as the domestic tourists. I believe it will probably take a year before people travel again. Next is education, which is moderate to severe. We are hearing that schools might open by September, with most schools not ready with e-learning. Manufacturing industry, out of 134 locators of MEPS, that's the Mactan Export Processing Zone, 70 have temporarily ceased, while 64 are still operating while strictly following ECQ guidelines. Some factories outside the MEPS area are operational, but on a very limited scale. If I may add the BPOs, they're moderately affected. Out of the 200,000 workforce, 50% are doing work from home, while others are still going to their offices but housed in temporary shelters or hotels. Business World validates what we've observed as they forecasted the probable financial impact after COVID 19 using worst, moderate, and best case scenarios. Industries adversely affected are manufacturing, especially non-food, wholesale, and retail. Services, which includes travel and tourism, and likewise the financial sector or banking. And while this pandemic temporarily brought chaos and confusion, there are clear winners amidst this crisis. And to mention a few: essentials, food retail, supermarket and medicines that are pre-established takeout or delivery and sold via online platforms or social media were an instant hit. Money transfers, the Guyers, the Pagawans, have longer queues in some areas compared to pre-COVID. Logistics and couriers have never been busier. Now, if there's a key takeaway from this pandemic, amidst the financial impact it created, it forced people to be creative and adopt the use of technology as a medium to go about their daily lives. We find people use a lot of digital platforms to communicate, and work from home is indeed possible. Business realize that they can still operate and service their customers online. And even the non-digital natives now trust online banking and contactless or e-payment facilities. If I may suggest, to capitalize on this new paradigm, enterprises will need to do the following to be ahead when day zero comes. Number one, businesses need to reevaluate their purpose, carefully analyze the situation, what were the problems encountered during COVID, and how to address the pressing concerns. Owners will have to redefine business by enabling e-commerce and digital channels. Investments would have to be made in very reliable ERP systems. And as businesses go digital, the threat of data privacy and cybersecurity increases. As such, they would more than ever need an end-to-end cybersecurity service. They also need to build ecosystems or partnerships by adopting a business development mindset. Virtual meetings will be the new norm, and enterprise-grade collaboration tools are non-negotiable with security policies of prime importance. Embracing change and get out of the rigidity trap. for MSMEs, a better understanding of supply chain is a must. Just to share on what we are currently doing as an organization to breeze through this crisis, we are practicing what we have been preaching all along, using heavily collaboration tools such as Microsoft Teams and SharePoint in the conduct of our business. We are somehow fortunate to have taken the lead in shifting to digital a few years back, and it is paying its dividends during this time. Had we not taken that painful step of pivoting, it would have been very difficult for us to conduct our business. Our people, especially our relationship managers and technical teams, continue to work from home and also use digital tools in collaborating with our clients as well as with ourselves. We are also maximizing time to do a lot of online learning, sharpening the saw, so to speak, so that when day zero comes, our troops will be better equipped to serve our clients. In closing, may we never know, we may never know what the future holds, but we know who holds the future. And one thing is for sure, we definitely cannot go back where we were. This is now the new normal. Allow me to quote the words of our chairman and president, MVP himself. There are lessons that can be learned from COVID 19, and by learning, we could come out better. Thank you, and back to you, Kent.
Thank you very much, Jimmy. I'm sure our viewers can really relate that these aren't normal times. My take of what you shared is that there are several industries that were affected, but there are also other industries, albeit a few, that benefited. So it's not at all negative. So what I also like in your presentation is that PLDT as an organization is learning to work from home, learning to use digital technology, and that people are sharpening the saw so that once day zero comes, they are ready. I like that. Thank you very much, Jim. Again, thank you very much to our resource speakers, our presenters. Those were very valuable and powerful insights. We now move on to the next part of the program with our reactors. At this point, I would like to introduce our esteemed roster of panelists who are also live with us this afternoon and will be joining in today's insight sharing. First, we have Mr. Felix Tagyam. He is the current president of Cebu Chamber of Commerce and CEO of Deco Sales Incorporated. Felix, good afternoon. How are you?
Good. Good afternoon, Ken. How are you?
I'm good. Any reaction to the presentations?
Well, just for a short message from the chamber, amid crisis and disruptions, how do we define normal nowadays? We're now living in a different world. With COVID-19 in place, we have to adapt to the new norm. Wearing of masks, social distancing, social hygiene will be in all office setups or store settings. Businesses must restart and reboot. We have to innovate. Technology is just around the corner. Now is the time that we must embrace the digital divide. PLDT services is readily available. During the start of our ECQ, CPO and IT services shifted to work from home. Some companies shifted their office backend and operations to employees' houses. Before the ECQ started a few weeks ago, we in the Cebu Chamber of Commerce have sent half of our staffs to work online. Then the other half a week later. Presently, together with our Executive Director, May Ibanez, our daily operations, documentations, research, surveys, Mexico meetings, and board meetings are now done through teleconference. For the essential establishments like supermarkets, pharmacies, logistics, and other related essential industries have started to adopt the web services online, followed by homegrown food-based services, which have expanded big and wide. Delivery services has also thrived as job opportunities increases. This is the time that we all have to encourage MSMEs to adapt to change, adapt to time. App services can be designed to wants and need endlessly. As a saying and quoted by Jack Ma, if your business is not on the net, you are not in business. As to any member of the business community, especially CCCI members, networking is a must now. And if you are not networking, you're not working. So to say, let's bring it on. Cebu. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Felix. Key takeaway is restart and reboot. I guess the chamber nowadays is using a lot of digital technology, and I think it's really the way to go. No? Certain changes has to be made. Next, we have is Mr. Robert Go. Mr. Go is the president and CEO of Prince Retail Group, whose main business is a chain of supermarket and hypermart all over the country. Mr. Go is likewise the chairman and spokesperson of the Philippine Retail Association of Cebu. Mr. Go, how are you? Maayong hapon, sir.
Yeah, good, good. Thank you, Kent.
Camera, Mr. Go. We're not seeing
Kent?
your screen, Mr. Go.
Kent?
Yes, Mr. Go, we're
Yeah,
not seeing your screen.
you're not seeing my screen.
Um, Maybe we can move technical problems. We can now, we'll get back to you and go to Mr. Bunny Pajes. Um,
Oh, oh, hold-
okay, next presenter
Wait,
is Mr. Bunny Pajes, founder and chairman of Bunny Pajes Holdings, whose business is food retail, education, construction, and maintenance and repairs. He was chosen as the Entrepreneur of the Year in 2015 by Cebu Chamber of Commerce. Bunny, good afternoon. How are you?
Hi, good afternoon, Ken. As good as I can be. I'm happy to be here, and thank you, PLDT, for inviting me here. Well, reacting to the talks of Andrew and Jimmy, it's very obvious that we're going to be in for tougher times. But this afternoon, I want to be a realist and not be a defeatist kind of person. I have to admit that I'm scared. I'm scared not only for my family, but for all of us, especially those who have less in life. And although I feel this way, I want to assure everybody that at the same time, I feel as excited, as highly motivated, as challenged to overcome this crisis that are facing us today. Last March 25, we shut down all our businesses, our restaurants, our fresh juice, bars and counters, and our school, all of them in one single day. Since then, our revenue has been zero. Yes, nothing. And when you are responsible for over 1,000 people and their families, there's no money coming in, and their families have maybe hardly any food on the table in the next few months. How can one not be scared? But what is even more scary for me is the strong possibility of losing our food business entirely that my family of 7 who had worked hard and long for the past 20 years to build. We all know that the retail business, the restaurant and the mall business will be very different in the near future. For how long can a small family business like ours continue to lose money before it gets or it goes under? I know that I'm not alone. Many of you watching here are in the same situation as I am. To me, the way to move forward is to go back and be an entrepreneur once again. We need to return to the basics. We need to work harder, longer, and more passionate than ever in our lives. We must keep fit and take care of our health, no matter how old we are today. We need to start with a clean sheet of paper and be more creative because the new normal is going to be different from the old normal. This is what I plan to do. I don't have the answers. We need to figure them out individually, each one of us. As Jimmy Chua of PLDT said earlier, we need to embrace change. The sooner, the better. And among those of us who feel low, discouraged, and even depressed today, I don't blame you. But we need to change this kind of attitude. Negative thinking will not bring us anywhere. It will bring us down. We need to start thinking of winning. Yes, we need to think of winning in spite of all the negativity around us. It's the only way out of this predicament. That's what I plan to do until my last breath. I always remind myself of my favorite quotation on winning, and I want to share it here this afternoon. And I quote: if you think you are beaten, you are. If you think you dare not, you don't. If you would like to win but think you cannot, it's almost sure you won't. For life's battles don't always go to the stronger or faster man, but sooner or later, the man who wins is the one who thinks he can. And so, my beloved Filipinos, with God's grace and blessing, we can overcome this challenge as one nation and as one Filipino with this singular thought: to win, to win, to win. Thank you.
Wow, Bunny, that was such a powerful statement, despite your business being closed. Um,
We will overcome.
yeah, thank you
Yeah.
for that. Quite
As
encouraging.
as many other Filipinos will, I'm sure of it.
Yeah. Thank you, Bunny. We now go back to Mr. Go. Mr.
Yes.
Go,
Can you hear me?
Mr. Yes, loud and clear, Mr. Go. So, Mr. Go is the president and CEO of Prince Retail Group, whose main business is a chain of supermarket and hypermart all over the country. Mr. Go is likewise the chairman and spokesperson of the Philippine Retail Association. Mr. Go, maayong hapon, sir.
Maayong hapon. Thank you, Kent. In
Any reaction,
retail,
sir?
yes. In the retail industry, non-essentials are all closed. But even if they are open, few are willing to buy, just like our general merchandise and our department store section. This will be a new normal. On supermarket like Prince, located in far-flung provinces around the country, one key learning was really ICT. We have to fast-track our digital transformation roadmap plan for the next 2 years, but has to implement now. Overnight, we have to be ready. At Prince, none could have imagined what we are doing now. Suddenly, support team concentrate on the 59 Prince Hypermart and 2 Go Mart Express working from home. We have to access our retail software tools from home. All before on papers are now on digital. We were not prepared for this, but no choice. We have to make it work and with creativity and quick fixes, continuous collaboration between ICT team and key officers of Prince. Key learnings was flexibility and creativity. Creativity in serving the customer, flexibility in workforce management, creativity on working from home. Supermarkets are not business as usual since flexibility and creativity are both reserved for technology and startup. Because of the crisis, we have to act like a startup. 60% of our 800 corporate workforce were activated to work from home to mitigate job losses. We bought a company bus for our office worker while company trucks transport store employees. We immediately rented entire houses in each location of our stores to continually keep our stores open and to get employees paid. We also add hazard pay to all frontliner. Able to activate we were able to activate new ordering system for all our stores. Customer can call, text, Viber, email, Messenger, and order, and we can deliver them for a fee or even for free if they combine their deliveries. We also activated customer call and pickup system. We activate quick fixes to digital transformation initiative Far from perfect, but working. An ordering app for consumers is being tested in our Bulacan store now. Even our payment system with supplier launched with bank technology, first for the bank and first for Prince, all done from home. Technology has really been a great connector and communication tools for all of us. Prince stores are all over in the far-flung, scattered areas in the country, with headquarters working from home through technology, collaboration, and communication. We run business without being there. We reach our customers through technologies and customers in remote villages, and they even thank us. They send thank you letter through our drivers, and digital platform for ordering is now our first priority. Thank you and good afternoon.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Go. I guess while you, even if you're not prepared, I guess COVID uh, accelerated how you shifted to digital transformation.
It's every
Were
day.
you?
It's an everyday thing. And
Yeah.
as I said, my one day is like 1 month, and our 1 week is like a 1 year. Every day it changes.
I guess, Mr. Go, these are really aren't normal times. Thank you very much for your valuable insights. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, we now officially proceed to our Q&A.
Key in your questions, comments, and suggestions via the chat.
To everyone who's tuned in this afternoon, join us and be a part of the discussion by keying in your questions via chat feature. So let me pose my first question to Mr. Pajes. Bunny,
Yes.
ECQ has practically placed your business currently grounded. What have you learned from this pandemic, and what changes are you planning to implement to protect your business in case of another similar situation or, knock on wood, the second wave?
Well, we're zero right now, but we're building on our delivery and our takeout business, which is starting to grow. We are putting all our brands into one umbrella, which means that our customers can call on a number and they can mix match on their dishes that they want to order. It's limited, but we started that a few days ago and it's starting to build up. And we will have to continue to improve on our delivery system, on our ordering system, and in fact, we were using cell phones, but the other day I bought several of those headsets that the call centers are using, and that we're trying it out right now. So, but we're not thinking of the next pandemic. We're just thinking about how to overcome this one. It's well, the biggest lesson we've learned is that things can just change in a minute. You need to be more prepared. Like for example, when the city ordered the curfew, our sales dropped by 80% because most of our sales come from the evening. So if
Oh,
there will be a lifting of the ECQ in the future, we'd like to request that maybe the curfew can be moved maybe up to 10 o'clock in the evening, because just cutting it at 8 o'clock in the evening is really useless for those who will be operating restaurants.
yeah. Thank you very much. Well noted. I guess Felix here is listening. Maybe Felix, is that something that you can
Yes.
uh,
Bunny.
advocate?
Felix?
Yes, Bunny. I Pertaining to the curfew time, we will coordinate with the local LGUs to see what we can do. But the priority of the LGUs now is when everything goes back to what you say GCQ status. Everybody, all businesses has to do their own social distancing on how their clients will sit and how will they be served. But anyway, nevertheless, rest assured, I will take up your case and ask the city government if ever we can extend the curfew time longer.
Thank you.
Thank you also, Felix. Now, let me throw the next question to Robert. Robert, I understand that most, if not all, of your stores are open, albeit some regulatory restrictions. What are the challenges you are currently facing this pandemic, and how are you addressing this challenge?
Oh, there are lots and lots of challenges, no, in 61 sites. Well, some LGU would not let anybody pass through the border, so that we have to pick up all our deliveries, transfer from trucks to to get our deliveries, and we have to rent a lot of new trucks just to uh, activate all our stores. But the greatest challenge is to let our head office continue the work, because it's going to control all the merchandise in all the stores. Now, uh, we bought buses to pick up, but after a time, because of lockdowns in different barangays, my buses become useless. And I rented houses to house all my people. And after a while, barangay people want to quarantine them, and they have to go home. No, we bought hundreds and uh, laptops, and sent all the desktop home to them for to use the internet. But many of their homes have no internet or have very weak signals, so which cannot be. So they have to come back, and you know, in Cebu, there's a lot of all different uh, policies. No, every day there's new policies, and so the challenges was to keep the office working, keep the suppliers paid, and keep our uh, stores fully stocked. And the problem solver was really IT. We have to work from home. We have to do all the everything online. It's working. It's not perfect, but it's the IT is the miracle for us that keep
Wow.
us working.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. At
Can
least you're still
can can I
business
can I
as
butt in,
usual.
Ken?
Sure, go ahead,
Can I
Bunny. I mean, y-
yeah. Can
unfortunately,
I add something to that? I think it's
go
also very
ahead, Bunny.
important.
Go ahead, Bunny.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Go
I think
ahead.
it's also very important that the different government agencies coordinate with each other. Like for example, if you get a permit from one agency and it's not coordinated properly with the other, then it's not honored. Like yesterday, we got clearance from the city government to allow our delivery people with motorcycles a permit that each one was carrying. And this morning, the police stopped them and give them CTO sort of citation tickets, despite the fact that there's a clear clearance from the city government allowing our delivery people to deliver the goods that ordered by our customers. So I think it's very important. We don't need all of these distractions and all of these hindrances in running our business that we're trying to grow. I mean, not grow, but start all over again from scratch.
Yeah,
That
Felix,
was
nicely
maybe
also
put.
in the
you
paper,
can,
di ba?
yeah.
One, asking all the LGU to have unified rules,
Yeah,
and me at
even within Cebu City, Robert. This is within Cebu City. You can't even
that's
cross
right.
Mandawi right now, which is a really big challenge. So
That's why
Thank
I have
you.
stores without drivers, without managers.
At least, Robert, you're still operating. No? It's a good
God
sign.
bless.
Gentlemen, let me pose a question. This is a very important question to the business community. No? Felix, maybe you can answer this. This prolonged ECQ has somehow placed owners in a dilemma between safety and survival. Uh, while both are equally important, how is the chamber addressing this issue, and what first to prioritize once ECQ is lifted? Felix?
Felix,
Yes. Okay.
Safety versus survival.
Safety versus survival. Since the ECQ started, you know, all businesses in Cebu has been greatly affected. Cebu, Mandawi, Lapu-Lapu, the highly industrialized places of Cebu. This is 80% of the economy of Cebu. Presently, we are trying to get our local government support. The three mayors are in cooperation with our OPAB here to trying to start the economy. We have been in lockup for a month already, and we felt the hard times of all our members and other businesses also. From manufacturing to tourism is something that we have to prolong for a while because there's no international flights. But we hope with the startup of the economy, we can see travelers, businessmen coming in and out of Cebu, so we can improve further. Safety. Once the ECQ will be lifted in Cebu, the local governments will instill discipline among the businesses, like store setup. You you have to put like what Robert or Bunny said, that you have to put on plastic screens in front of your table, no? Or the cashier is like in a bank. They are safe from the depositors that they don't do any face-to-face uh, direct interaction, no? So the question is very hard. The thing we have to restart, and with which we really don't have a handbook that we can follow. This was never taught in schools. All we have to do now is common sense, which is very important. Safety of our employees that wants to work. Their safety is also our safety. We may soon ask the private sectors to do their own rapid testing. Maybe not 100%, but at least a portion of their employees going to work, so that we will know the reality involved. I know this will need another investment, but first things first, safety should be our primus concern. Thank you.
Totally agree. I mean, Bunny, do you agree also? I mean, this is an additional cost to you guys if you are to shoulder rapid testing kits.
Yeah, we
Robert?
really have to make
Any-
sure that it's safe to open. Like Hokkaido in Japan opened too early. Well, they were in 3 weeks, they were on a flat curve. So they decided to open, and now they're back because just already 80% increase, right? The 3 weeks after they opened. So they're back on lockout. So it's not easy. Well, we in business will just have to be dependent a lot on what the government will do and decide. But of course, it's got to be data driven, and it's got to be balanced out with safety and the business factor. It's not easy. I don't want to be in their shoes right now, Ken.
Yeah, how about you, Robert? I'm sure you're okay
Yeah,
with that.
yeah. In fact, I've already searched for the UP testing kits. No, told me it's about 800 to 1,000 per kit, and I'm doing that because it's so that my employee would be confident to come here to work, knowing that there's no positive. No, I'm doing it for my employee actually. So it's very important for me.
Okay. It's okay. So I understand that most of you guys are going into digital. Let me just throw a question to Jimmy. No? Uh, the NBI Cybercrime Division reported that while the ordinary crime significantly decreased, the cybercrime, on the other hand, increased by 100%. So, with PLDT at the forefront of digital technology and cybersecurity, how is PLDT addressing this concern?
Well, Kent, that's a very interesting question. You know, as business move faster to adopt digital technologies, it is expected that cyber criminals will have a feast day on businesses who are not investing in cybersecurity systems. This is why PLDT and our ICT arm, ePLDT, have made significant investments in creating a cybersecurity group. With the state of the art Security Operations Center, one of its kind in the country, to address the threats of data privacy and cybersecurity, not only for the PLDT group, but also for our customers who want to be more proactive in protecting their businesses from being compromised, especially that as more are working from home and outside the security protocols of their offices, as vulnerability of these workers have increased tremendously, PLDT can help by providing security to people working from home.
Thank you very much, Jimmy. I mean, that's one thing that we really need to make sure we have to, while we are going to this technology, we also have to be secure in doing
Ken,
business. Yes,
Ken,
Robert, yes.
I've been hit, but it was pre-COVID, and I would say that for people who are really into digital, they have to invest in cybersecurity because you'll you'll be uh, it's not small money when you're hit. When you're
So,
hit, you'll say, I should have invested because the amount that will hit you would be huge. That's all I
thank
can
you.
say. That's why
Yeah,
I also invested in that.
thank you, Robert. You're actually giving a cue to Jimmy to call on you after this session. Anyway, let me throw a question to Andrew. One of the major industries of Cebu is travel and tourism, and Cebu being the second most frequently visited island by foreigners next to Boracay. No? From the data that you presented, what can we expect from the travel and tourism industry within the short term? Andrew, is there hope for leisure travel or business travel?
Uh, to a certain degree. So travel restrictions imposed as part of the lockdowns obviously have put international travel at a standstill, really. And unfortunately, I mean, the international travel restrictions are likely to be the most enduring part of the social distancing that we're all seeing. So unfortunately, that it is a little bit negative. So one of the things that we look at is what's happening in China. This does give us a little bit of hope. First, for the domestic sector, there has been loads on Chinese domestic flights up to 60%. But I mean, that's still very different from what it was before. So, you know, there still is a reduction. But so domestic travel will start. So appealing to local tourists, actually, to come visit is probably the best bit. We do see that and forecast that there's going to be a kind of a reduction in visits to even the most visited country, like France, for instance. We're predicting about 38% down. So there's definitely going to be a hit. We think it's going to be actually more pronounced in major cities. So one of the great things about the Philippines is that people, you know, come for the gorgeous beaches and come for a little bit of the nature rather than you know, wanting to visit a city like New York or Paris, where it's going to be really quite a bit more lagging. So there is that. And once again, one of the things that we see as hopeful is that you know, if there is a lot of testing in the area, it'll give people confidence to come to that destination. So you know, I think it's one of the things people will be looking at when deciding eventually, once they can book a holiday, is where the testing rates are at a significant level. But unfortunately, in the short term, it's going to be a little bit grim.
Ken, can I ask Andrew a question?
Go ahead, Bunny.
Yeah, Andrew, Bunny here. From a global perspective, would you be able to use the experiences of the 1918 Spanish flu or even the Great Depression in the 1920s in terms of recovery as against this COVID-19 situation? How long do you expect the recovery to take, even if the lockdown will be removed within the next 30 or 45 days?
Yeah. So I think that's actually a really good one, and one that actually our epidemiologists, because we actually have epidemiologists in the group that track medical rollouts and such. So they're actually looking at this, and one of the key things is that there's not a second wave in a big way. I don't know if everyone's seen the comparison between.
Can you say that again? You don't expect a second wave. That means we only have one wave.
Yes. Right now,
Okay, that's good.
there's a lot of good caution in the market right now, and the second wave is really the troubling bit. If you've seen the difference between like St. Louis and Philadelphia and how they reacted, but St. Louis actually did unfortunately let up a little bit too early, and they had a second wave come in, and that delayed their recovery quite a bit. So really. So long as that's the case, we should begin to see recovery start at the end of the third quarter. So that's
the end of the third quarter for 2021 or 2022?
2020.
2020. Wow,
So,
pretty optimistic, huh?
Yeah. So that's assuming that there's still going to be some social distancing continuing. So we're all going to have to adapt to that. But the actual claw out of the recession can start in 2020. So that's.
Thank you very much, Andrew. I maybe to our panelists. No, we're running out of time. Any final message for our viewers tuned in, especially here in the Visayas? Maybe we can start from you, Bunny. No, final message.
Ken, this requires a whole village to go over this hump. The government has to help. The local government, the national government, the bankers will have to be more humane. Our landlords will have to be considerate as far as the rentals are concerned. Everybody has to share. Like employees will probably have to take a cut in pay, as well as the owners will have to scale down their lifestyles. So until we get this over with, and until we can again maybe have the good times, but we should tighten our belts, stay positive, and then still play to win, but maybe strongly also play not to lose.
Yeah. Playing conservatively, that's the operative word. No?
Yeah.
How about you, Robert? Any last word?
Yeah. Well, for us, I think the government really, for me, has to help, because all my problems are all government problems. And I have really shifted to digital, and it's working, and I have to invest more there, and I want to be ahead. No, with every crisis, there's supposed to be opportunity. So I'm looking at that door, but then again, government has to understand businesses also, and we're not looking at profit anymore, but we're looking at our survival and how to be better than others. So that's it, no? And I think it has to. Everybody has to review what they have, what's their business model, and think about it. Think hard. What would be on the long term? Thank you.
Yes. Hello.
Felix?
Yes. Oh, okay. As a parting word from the business sector, the Cebu Chamber of Commerce is really working hard for all the MSMEs in Cebu, even the large companies, to get back on track. What we need to do is to innovate. We need to reboot. We need to adapt to change. The use of technology is now a must. The ways we are learned and taught in school may be different in this time and to the next century. So let's all go back to our drawing boards, start from zero, and good luck to everybody. Thank you.
I guess we lost Kent.
We lost our host. Jimmy,
Oh,
can you
it's
take
game.
over?
Well, let me just give you some parting words from PLDT. As a provider, as an enabler, we continue to enable businesses to cope up with this pandemic. We understand the challenges. We also have our own challenges, but we rest assured that we continue to strive our very best to be able to support business, to support enterprise, how they can cope better and survive this uh, uh, quote unquote unfortunate situation. Thank you.
On that note, Jim, ladies and gentlemen, to our esteemed roster of presenters and panelists, to our viewers who tuned in this afternoon, on behalf of PLDT Enterprise, thank you for spending this memorable afternoon with us. This was hashtag One With You, the Enterprise Industry Virtual Forum for the Visayas region. And this has been your host, Kent de la Calzada. Stay safe, gentlemen. Dagang salamat.